This is Global Health, Unit 9, and I'm Dr. Gail Fraser. Today's discussion, we're going to be talking about complex emergencies, and so that is linked to disaster response and disaster risk reduction. And our case studies will be in the Caribbean, so we're going to be contrasting Cuba with Trinidad and Tobago. And just to let you know that my family lived many years in Trinidad and Tobago, and I'm most familiar with the health system there and the different systems that work or don't work sometimes very well. So it'll be an interesting contrast to Cuba, which has an excellent health system. So the role of a medical professional during a crisis. Now again, you all have health backgrounds. You're going to be well-respected professionals in our communities. And so I'm talking to you as health professionals, but it's true of any professional. Even business executives can respond and be supportive of communities when there's a crisis. So medical and public health consequences of political violence or war. The crisis could be created by violations of human rights in civil conflicts. Often we see around the world the brutal repression against its own citizens. So sometimes even an example would be in South Africa during the times when there was apartheid. And I think that that is an excellent example where within the civil government within an individual country, there are groups within the country that are part of a revolution. The role of professionals in a crisis also could be to help in responding to natural disasters. So here we are with the power of humanity. I know that we have looked at a lot of different videos that were from the International Federation of Red Cross and Red Crescent, and the consequence of natural disasters is one of the things that professionals within communities, especially health professionals, would be able to help with humanitarian crisis. Primary prevention in using a crisis or causing the halt to a civil disturbance is one of our roles. As a professional in communities, public health professionals have access to information, and this tends to help people understand their circumstance and make better choices. They are decisions made on different facts instead of just fear. And also our health professionals have a better idea of what it really means to have the environmental impacts, or looking at weather reports, listening to information, so we can share that with our communities as a spokesperson when there's civil strife. As a professional, you're a respected member of your community, and people look to you to have the correct information to be able to share ideas and make strategies. You have a greater responsibility to analyze the circumstance and help groups make important decisions. Secondary prevention is preventing or minimizing health or environmental consequences. So primary is actually dealing directly with the crisis in your community. Once a natural disaster or civil disturbance or war has broken out, public health professionals then can protect the public's health, minimize the consequences, and by publicizing the actual nature of the circumstance. Secondary prevention also relates to sharing news about the extent of injuries. So accurate information tends to get people to calm down. Again, civilians as well as military will be interacting within the crisis typically. And then the third level, or tertiary prevention, is treating or preventing the health consequences. Again, ameliorating. It is a matter of treating or helping people to look for successful methods used for treating injuries. Again, first aid is the first thing that comes into mind, but there's also the psychological or mental health issues that happen during a crisis. Following a crisis, people's homes have been destroyed. They've lost everything in their lives. They may have had family members die. or they might be separated from their families. Their children might be in one place and some of the adults might be somewhere else. And so there's a lot of stress. So it's not just the first aid and medical treatment that we're worried about, but psychological counseling is very often it's considered a psychological first aid, and it's in counseling to help people overcome their grief. Public health in complex emergencies. So humanitarian relief organizations like the International Federation and Red Cross, they immediately know that you need, number one, water, right? Number one, water, food, sanitation, shelter. These are all the basics that we've been talking about for global health, as well as the primary health care access. So first aid, basically. The changing conditions, meaning if they actually have to be relocated or they have to be separated because some people have to go to hospitals. Changing conditions make your environment feel very insecure. So again, that idea that people need to be strong and thinking and talking about things in a positive way, how things are recovering or improving, it's the type of support that is most valuable. We need to work more closely with military. Again, very often in a major crisis, I know in Colombia for sure, and in the US and other countries, very often when a disaster is actually announced officially, that means that there's different types of people, a military, the National Guard, different groups that are then allowed and sponsored, meaning there's money made available for these emergency groups to come in and help. There's a whole different organizational culture within an emergency, and we need to report any increased proportion of the mortality or morbidity. Again, these are very complicated issues, so you've got military forces coming in or different groups that are responding to the emergency, as well as reports coming in for protecting the individuals within the emergency. Again, forces cannot execute humanitarian assistance alone. Their mission is clear, but the complexity is that when they arrive there, they don't know if they have materials, they don't know the actual condition of people. They're coming in with basically blind and not knowing exactly what they might need. So also we need procedures, policies, different steps to actually train and equip and supply as they find out what they need, all the logistical support and the different issues that come into actually getting the things they need to the location where they're needed. And believe me, that is a major, major issue when you're dealing with a complex emergency. So disasters and health consequences. So civil unrest, we talked about, or will be talking about, the Arab Spring and the unrest in the Middle East, in Egypt and Libya and Syria. This is civil unrest versus the natural disasters like from hurricanes or typhoons or monsoons, depending on what part of the world you're in, earthquakes, floods. They do a lot of psychological harm as well as cause disability among the populations that are affected. So disasters and crises very often have many things in common, and your response and support to your community will be very similar. Again, disasters have a profound effect on low-income and middle-income groups, and it also causes degradation of the environment. So floods will destroy farmlands, for example. Health professionals, you play an important role in minimizing these adverse consequences or helping people to realize that what they need to do as a first step, next step, and logically develop a strategy that the community can be proud of and be glad to as they recover from a disaster. Crisis disrupts the society and the health infrastructure. Disasters force people to leave their homes and become internally displaced. So you have a lot of IDPs here or refugees within Colombia or Colombians who have gone to other countries like Ecuador, and the crisis may promote additional violence. So people, unfortunately, when systems are disrupted and everyone is sidetracked trying to get food and water and help people escape from flood areas or after an earthquake, sometimes vandals take advantage of that and they steal things from stores. They'll commit crimes that they will, because people are more exposed to injury. Okay, so let's see here. So in summary, natural disasters such as monsoons and earthquakes have a profound effect on health, especially in developing countries. So low and middle income individuals are more adversely affected. Health professionals, you can play an important role in minimizing these adverse health consequences and contribute to the on-site humanitarian organizations. So Cruz Roja in Colombia, International Federation Red Cross, and lots of different NGOs like Mercy Corps that respond to these types of emergencies. Next will be part 2. Welcome back. This is Unit 9, Part 2, and we're going to be talking a little bit about mobile hospitals that are dispatched through International Federation of Red Cross, Red Crescent. But first off, this is a virtual course, Global Health. Okay, right. We're learning from home. We're teaching and learning in pajamas. But this particular component, I'm hoping you will be motivated to realize that there's a lot to be done in global health, and you can do some of it and learn a lot while you're sitting at home in your pajamas, but definitely when you're in the field, you won't be in your pajamas. So let's get ready here. So this is rock and roll hospitals in a box. And it's just incredible the process in which they make this possible. There they are. That's a hospital in a box. And they load them on airplanes and they send them all over the world. And so it's a remarkable process that the International Federation of Red Cross, Red Crescent has locations strategically placed around the world so that they can send emergency assistance to the places that might need it. Mobile hospitals and disaster units are sent all from the mats that they put down on the ground, the tent stakes, every single individual item is within the box. They set up disaster units, and you can see this is a surgery. Again, this is the Canadian Federation of Red Cross, and it's a mobile hospital. They set up a surgery just like that. And you can see they even had the linoleum floor that they would have rolled up into a tube and then been able to roll out, because again, you couldn't have a sterile surgery with the dirt floor. So fully equipped military hospitals can be dispatched by the American Red Cross, for example. The urban design on the context of epidemiology, pandemics, quarantine areas, so they had quarantine areas that could have been built immediately, like in response to Ebola, when they were trying to figure out how to handle a potential rise in the number of cases when they had the first death due to Ebola in Dallas, Texas, of all places. So the Centers for Disease Control has guidelines, and the American Red Cross actually gives classes on how to set up these mobile hospitals. So it's one of the things that I hope that you can look for an opportunity to do in the future. There it is, just like that. Hospital in a box. A fully equipped military hospital it's deployed in a box. You can see the box on the right here, and then they set up all these small tents. And cities for the American Red Cross, you can see each of the wards, everything is set up. There's a storeroom, and medical stores. There are different places where they have hospital beds. It's an incredible process, and the reason that they have to have a map like this is that because as they're literally rolling it out of the boxes, you have to know where everything is supposed to go, because it's quite a lot of equipment that's all being rolled out. So it's rapidly deployed emergency hospital, and it's a hospital in a box, a field hospital. It's a complete unit. It's self-sufficient. And one of the handouts that is available in the library is a list of all the equipment. So right down to every little crossbar, every surgical instrument, even the different materials they'll need to set up a hospital cafeteria. The pots and pans, everything is in the box. So one reception tent, operating theaters, they have high wall showers and toilets, portable toilets, mattresses, bed linen. So you have to have everything available. And this is an example of how they might have a tent that was partitioned within the tent to have different areas for clean areas, examination rooms, even this is showing the labor ward. Here's a ward for children. So again, this is not a tent. You could see this is actually has some kind of other kind of aluminum wall. So this is a more permanent structure that was built for a temporary refugee camp, I'm guessing. So you can see everybody's chipping in. They have the mobile stations for washing. So you can see that they have hospitals, the beds here. There's a treatment area for individuals. So what we're encouraging you to do is to think about it. Think about how big a job this would be and how many, many hands make all that work light. So they're asking that you consider joining for Cruz Roja for a training. Volunteer to work with the International Federation Red Cross, Red Crescent. They also have paid positions once you finish your degree. So again, there are lots of ways that you can contribute as a health professional or as a volunteer to help respond to emergencies, because you can see from these pictures on the left-hand side here that you can see the types of consequences. This is actually Hurricane Katrina that happened in New Orleans, in Louisiana, in the United States several years ago, and they're still recovering from this disaster. So I would encourage you to look on the web and look at the World Disasters Report. And again, they had new issues, so that the most recent one would be 2014. And the video that I'm encouraging you to watch as part of this unit is Tsunami Recovery Operation. So we can watch part of that now. Let me see if I can get it to come up. Okay. I think that the video we can watch, it'll be in the video library, and I hope that you do, because again, it's very impressive, because I think there are some video clips of the actual tsunami that are so incredible that you can't believe that someone could face a wall of water that was 10 meters high just coming down at them. It's so enormous that in reality the damage that these types of disasters create are just unfathomable. But then the fact that people survive, that they need to recover, the communities have to be rebuilt and restored. And I think that because the 2011 flood of the Unisabana campus helped us to realize that it not only destroyed the classrooms and put 2 meters of mud in the beautiful white pristine walls, because of course I was in Colombia at the time of the flood, and the consequences, the emotional consequences of losing your campus, and to think, well, gosh, what are we going to do? It's a remarkable process that actually the recovery and the fact that the classes didn't stop and that they continued to have normal classes online or in alternate locations is a credit to Universidad de La Sabana, and something that we're actually now, I'm working with the teams there to try to summarize that information as case studies, as to publish reports about the positive consequences, the things that will never happen again at Unisabana because of the permanent wall and the good advice and the changes that they've instituted now on the campus as a consequence of the 2011 flood. I think that that is really what we are most proud of, that Unisabana can report their recovery and their restoration and the complete renovation, because they were saying it's not renovation, it's innovation, because this, as a consequence of the 2011 flood, they also spent a lot of money and resources creating classes like this one, not only in English but also in Spanish, so that they would never stop. Sabana would not stop, even though the whole campus was inundated. So great. Be sure to watch the video, and we'll go on to the case studies as part 3. Back again, Unit 9, and this is part 3 of Global Health. We're going to continue to talk about the case study. So we're going to be looking at Cuba versus Trinidad and Tobago. So Cuba, of course, is one of the very large Caribbean islands, just off the coast of Miami. You can see Florida here, and there's Havana. So Cuba is a huge country, much bigger than Jamaica or Haiti. You can see Dominican Republic, Haiti, and Jamaica are very close to Cuba. And then, of course, little old Trinidad and Tobago way here south. It's the southernmost windward island, and it's just off the coast of Venezuela. You can see it here on the map. So Cuba, you can see its location in the hemisphere, and I think that one of the things that happens with you all, because you live in Colombia, you're very familiar with the Caribbean and the different countries that are there. I think that generally speaking, international students as a whole are a lot more clever about geography and knowledgeable about the rest of the world. So here's Cuba. Here's Trinidad and Tobago. It's 2 small islands, and Tobago is actually a very beautiful coral island, and it is more like many of the surrounding Caribbean islands, whereas Trinidad, geologically speaking, it's just a piece of Venezuela that fell off, and that is why Trinidad is oil rich and Tobago is just a holiday island, a very small little sand spit kind of place. So here are our profiles from the World Health Organization. So you can see Cuba, with a population of 11 million, is quite a bit bigger than Trinidad with less than 2 million. The population of Havana is 2 million, whereas the capital of Port of Spain only has 500,000. You can see that Cuba, of course, has Spanish speaking, so it's more familiar with Colombia or aligned with Spain. It's Roman Catholic. It uses a peso. Life expectancy is quite high, so very similar to other developed countries like Colombia. The life expectancy for men is 77, and life expectancy for women is 81. So you can see these numbers right here. The per capita income, again, 12,000. That's not big. It's lower than Colombia. You can see in Trinidad, the life expectancy is lower than in Cuba. So men 67 on average, and women 74. So it's quite dramatically lower. But the per capita income is higher. Now, I'm not quite sure if that is a true reflection of income, but it probably is related to the oil industry, whereas Cuba is not an oil-rich country. The literacy rate in Cuba is comparable. Again, literacy in Trinidad and Tobago, which is a former British colony, versus Cuba, which is a former Spanish colony. They have very high literacy. They invest a lot in education for young people, which is very good. So most people can read. This is an exception for most developing countries have very low literacy rates, so this is excellent. You can see the maternal mortality rate for Cuba is 53 per 100,000 births, very similar to Trinidad and Tobago, 54. Children mortality, the less than 5, so the under 5-year-olds, 6 per 1,000 live births, 26 per 1,000 live births. That's the first thing that's really dramatically different besides the life expectancy. You can see that Trinidad has a lot to come up to speed, and looks like the under 5's deaths is an area that could use some improvement when you're looking at comparing it with Cuba. They've done a better job. So in the Caribbean as a whole, they have a risk management plan, and so the existing arrangements for disaster response, they have drills, they have dissemination of early warnings, response, impact assessment, relief. So you can see that it goes along a traditional chain of command for a management initiative. So they have within that emergency communications, emergency search and rescue. This third box here, you can see that they have emergency communications on a broader scale, requesting assistance and letting people know the impact and the locations of problems, as well as the final fourth component here where they're giving relief. So again, what do they need first? Water, food, shelter. And then after that we have the restoration of utilities, public safety, public information, and finance. So you can see this is overall, the Caribbean has a good risk management initiative. When we're comparing and contrasting countries, when you're looking at disasters or civil disturbances, I think that it's always interesting to compare and contrast places that are within the same region. So Cuba versus Trinidad and Tobago, or even Haiti compared to Dominican Republic is one of my favorites, because of course that's actually physically on the same island that's divided in half. So when we're looking at the role and ethics of health service providers, Cuba compared to Trinidad and Tobago with disaster response, that we have to make a contrast. And I think that one of the ways that you can do that is to look at the International Federation of Red Cross and Red Crescent disaster report. Remember, we mentioned that earlier in part 1, and that our challenges, the International Conference of International Federation of Red Cross and Red Crescent, is another way that you can look for information about the contributions. So let's go ahead and look at the overall picture for the Caribbean, as well as going on to our discussion questions. So I think that one of the videos that I really would like you to look at to give you a better sense of context for the Caribbean would be Haiti 1 year after the earthquake and there's so much disruption in their country. So again, giving Haiti hope is one of the things that the positive impact, and the fact that communities had to be resilient and come together to rebuild their homes and their communities. For our class exercise, it's going to be another challenge, because as we go up the upstream global health, I'm hoping that you'll be able to easily complete assignments that are more challenging. So each step up the upstream global health, it will be a little bit more difficult, built on the skills that you've gained and the definitions and the context within global health that we are learning through the readings and the different discussions that we have. So we're going to divide our participants. Again, we've got blue team, we've got green team. And as teams, I want you to prepare a disaster response plan. Now, again, from your readings, it should be clear what the steps would be. And I think that because there will be lots of people contributing, you'll have one idea from blue team. Within the blue team, they'll have some other ideas, and together the whole idea will be composed. And the same thing with Green Team, that you will be able to see each other's responses and think, oh, well, we have this idea, but what about that? So again, your disaster response plan has to be more than just providing water, food, and shelter, because we have done that kind of action plan already. What we want to do is logistics. We want to look at relocation. We want to look at other types of problems that will, in some cases, need to be taken care of immediately. Because again, earthquakes tend to have aftershocks, and earthquakes can be like 1, 2, 3, they could be like 7 in a row, especially if you're looking at places near Ankara in Turkey, where they have very active movement, or in Iran, where there are continuous earthquakes over and over. So as a team, I want you to prepare a disaster response plan for up to 1 million people, so 300,000 to 1 million people, including people that are well, but also casualties, children that may be separated from their families. So all the types of things that would be in a real disaster, and how you might deploy, if you think it would help, how you might use mobile hospitals. And I'm encouraging you to watch the International Federation of Red Cross and Red Crescent video that actually shows you the remarkable process, because this is why they actually offer individuals can volunteer. They especially encourage health professionals, so nurses and physicians, to come and join their teams and actually practice. So you go to a location, say an international location away from Colombia probably, and practice. You learn how they actually unpack these mobile hospitals, and it's a really interesting week. It's a whole week camp where you go and volunteer and learn how to use the mobile hospitals. So class exercise, here are your scenarios. Okay, so group 1, disaster number 1, plan a response to a monsoon. So again, we're talking about heavy rains, flooding, and this is in Dhaka, Bangladesh. And you know that that whole region is very low-lying. It's not dissimilar to Florida in that it has lots and lots of water around it under normal circumstances. So Bangladesh, and there are 1 million people that are impacted by the disaster. Got it? Okay, right. So disaster number 2, Ankara, Turkey. There are 30,000 people who've been displaced by a natural disaster, an earthquake. So you've got the risk of aftershocks that I mentioned. So your team will need to develop a disaster plan. So food, a minimum of 150 grams of rice for each adult, 100 grams for each child. So define your group. It's up to you to make the decisions about the numbers and the counts, because again, it's in your imagination. You be creative. And water, so 1.5 liters for adults, 1 liter for a child. You need to have a safe location, maybe even have to relocate, especially if their home has been flooded. And community counseling, the types of supports that people would need, so not just first aid or primary health care. You'd need to look at the psychological first aid, which would include counseling, and people who have lost their family member, even children who have lost their pet. It's amazing that it's so important to have families being put back together if the children and the adults are separated, the parents are separated, but also that the restore a community with so that they have their pets. Logistics strategy, delivery of food, who's going to do it, how are you going to get there, the types of airplanes, the type of landing strips, all these things are important. So here's your map. So USGS has a map. You can log into it right now and look it up. And again, this is an example of a planning outline. This is actually from University of Texas, Austin, and I live in Austin when I'm in the United States, because that's where my daughter, she actually works at University of Texas in Austin, and that's where my grandchildren live also. So, but the School of Nursing has this excellent plan, and I'll make this available as a PDF file for you to look at in the library. So you can see the evacuation, severe weather, fire, hazardous materials, whether you would actually shelter in place in some circumstances. And so please go ahead and join your groups and make the most of it. This is Global Health, and I thought maybe this would be a good time before you all head out for your Easter holiday, Semana Santa, that we review the syllabus and the different components that you'll be completing the second half of this semester with your student evaluation. So reviewing the syllabus. So as you know from the different materials we've discussed before, that your student evaluation, the bulk of your points has to do with your group student project. It's a project that you can choose most any country in the world, although I did say that it might be difficult to find information on South Sudan. You know, Zimbabwe, go for it. Gabon, Greece, you want to talk about Bolivia, Argentina, any other country other than Colombia would work fine. That's 30% of your grade. Obviously, you've been doing a lot of work, and I've been very pleased with your progress with the assignments, the different readings, the summaries that you've given me from your videos, the references, your Half the Sky missions that you've completed, and then the upstream challenges that get more difficult each time. These are all things that you've been working on as a class and made good progress for. I'm really interested to see now taking the skills that you've learned in each of the steps to see what you think about your international health project and the important issues that you're going to discover as you learn more about the individual countries that you choose. So student evaluation, again, it's a 2-unit class. That means that we should spend on average at least 2 hours per week with the assignments and reading. Keep in mind that the assignments should be submitted online within the Virtual Savannah platform. That way I can grade them and it goes automatically into the spreadsheet, and then when I post your grades, everything is already tallied on the spreadsheet. Late assignments, again, I adjust the score so that it would have 20% less points, because it's only fair the students who have rushed to turn it in on time that they be given the same credit. You can't get the same credit as they did. Your student assignments, again, in February we checked your progress on Half the Sky and the challenges, so thank you for your input. I appreciate hearing from all of you related to problems with the Virtual Savannah site. We are working every day to improve how this course might be delivered the second time around. This is our beginning. Of course, March is the current semester. We are right here before Easter, so we're going to give you a midterm point tally. This is the time when you should have already made your selections for your student project, so 1 or 2 other students can join. A group of 3 is the most that works well. To choose a health topic: maternal child health, child nutrition, HIV, malaria, tuberculosis. Choose a health priority, and then choose a location to do your review. So again, in a developing country, Haiti, Guatemala, Japan, any country, international country where you do the evaluation of this global health problem. By May, you should be able to give a live presentation as a group, and we're going to be making arrangements with Virtual Savannah. You might be able to use their studio if it's not possible to put everybody together on one Skype. And there is no final examination. That's why I'm emphasizing the importance of your international country project, because it really is the bulk of your grade, and there is no final exam. In-class participation, so again, your contributions to our debates, the discussion forums, the different materials, the Half the Sky that you've submitted, the crossword puzzles, the Jeopardy games. There's more of those coming, so don't worry. And then your in-class discussions. Upstream challenges, so again, action plan, climate change, the different levels of missions and quests that you're completing are all very important for your grade. I have put together now the Jeopardy geography, so I'm hoping that we can figure out a way that we can actually play it as a game that might be online and live action. But if not, then at least you'll be surprised by some of the answers, because I certainly was. Here's an example of the Jeopardy geography where you have to decide which country this is. It looks pretty nice, doesn't it? But is it France or is it Mexico? So this is kind of the thing that you might be surprised at the answers for some of these. Your upstream global health challenges, again, it's sequential, so that each one builds on the other. It gets easy because you have already gained skills with the first beginning levels. Debate, again, I think that you've all done a good job in doing the glossary matching competition, and I'm hoping that everybody will enjoy this trivia for the international culture. Again, your Global Reading Weekly, the humanitarian videos online. So I think that those have been well received, and you've given me good summaries after watching those videos. The typical context, though, the assignments and so on, of course your reading assignments within the community public health nursing. Now, the country project's the one I really want to talk to you about, because again, you're all getting ready to head out for a week, have a relaxing time during Holy Week before Easter. Your student groups should have 2 to 3 students work together to create one presentation. One global priority solution, select one developing country, and work on it. Everyone will be turning them in on the 15th of May by 4 p.m. But presentations won't always, they will have to be divided into 2 separate live sessions, which then will be made available for everyone to watch, be online when we give the live presentations. So they have to be divided into 2, because we have 25 students, and that means that we'd have 3 groups on one day and 4 groups on another day. The presentations are to be given in English, and don't worry, it's all good because I can understand much of your Spanish, but the idea is that you would give the presentations in English. So step by step, form a group. Okay, so you've got 2 or 3 students together. You can work independently if you'd like. Select one country, select one health topic, and then you create a PowerPoint summary of information that goes through the steps of not only giving the country context and different types of initiatives that have been completed successfully in the countries, but also look at the solutions Be creative. Think of ideas. Look at what has been done successfully in the country for that particular priority problem, and then summarize it. You'll have about 20 minutes, so 30 slides max. For a video format, I know I've had students who do the videos in the past, and that worked very well. I think that they actually are more time intensive. You have to review and edit, and it takes a lot more time, but some students really like to do that, so that's acceptable format also. And I want you to give at least 8 solid references from your online reference list. So there are credible, good sources of information. I don't want to see any references to Wikipedia. That's not a reliable source of information. So create your bibliography using the correct APA format, and then you'll be all set for getting top scores for your project. So again, we're talking about introduction, we're talking about the Millennium Goal linkages. So if reducing poverty is one of the Millennium Goal #1, then you would mention that and how that is affected by that country. 4 examples of health programs that have been successful or initiatives. So something, child nutrition, have they opened primary health care centers? Do they have a school nutrition program? Do they provide milk to families and bus service that allows children to actually go to school early to get breakfast? So these would be examples of successful programs. For examples of programs that had challenges, so the problems that still exist, even though many things have been done in that country to correct the problem. Now, I really, really want you to think about it, not just write down what you read and blah, blah, blah. I mean, that's not what global health is about. The whole idea of this class is for you to think about what the information means to you and how you could solve the problem. Because you're going to come up with ideas that a lot of people would never even have thought of. We look at the innovations that are happening every day. Young people from schools of engineering, from medical science, all the people working together to create solutions to problems so this is the idea. Your opinion and recommended solutions is the heaviest part of the report. I really want to hear from you. It doesn't have to be, something you're reading from a book. It just what you as a group have decided will work. And that's just as important as all the others. Conclusions and next steps. So next steps, don't forget that. So what you will then do, if you were a community member or part of a committee that was making decisions, what would be your next steps? So how will that actually be implemented in the future? So not only an action plan, your ideas of the solution, but also next steps. So that would be the final part, the conclusions. And again, your bibliography. So this is the time to join the Global Health Adventure. And many of the students that I have had in my classes in the past, I hear from them later. They're working in Zimbabwe or some other location. And I'm always very happy to hear back from you that you've actually taken that step. I know that I was talking to someone just last weekend, and he had the opportunity when he finished his bachelor's degree from Colombia. He went to Universidad Nacional, and he was asked to join the military service, but he was identified to actually work with the UN. So this young man was selected to join the Colombian soldiers that supported the United Nations in Egypt. And it was a great experience for him. It was totally different from living in Colombia, which is lush and green and beautiful mountains. Well, Egypt is beautiful, but it's a desert. So it was quite different for him. So these are the types of things that I'm hoping that you will be encouraged that it's possible to do. You've seen how other people are working in international locations, and that you might want to do humanitarian work in the future, even if it's only for a couple of years. You wouldn't have to spend your whole 40 years of your career like I have, but just those 2 or 3 years would make a huge difference to you as an individual, but also to the organizations that you're contributing to. Questions? So be online. I'm happy to be, or weekly chat sessions. I haven't had a lot of people ask questions. I think that one of my settings might have not been correct on receiving your reply emails. So I think that now we can communicate better. So thanks very much. We'll see you after Easter.